So you want to be a dungeon master?
You want to be a dungeon master?
So you want to be a DM? So you want to be a DM?
That's great. We're here to help. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Justin. This week, we're going to be covering how dungeon masters can keep track of all of the things. Their world, their PCs, their players, backstories, monsters, plotlines, NPCs, villains, etc., etc. The idea for this episode comes from Lucille over on our Patreon. So if you have questions or an idea for an episode topic, head over to the Patreon and hit us up. Link in the description. Help us help you. We're about to deep dive into notes, organization, and keeping track of all of the moving parts. So let's get into it. But first, always got to be but first. Taylor, what is a story or a setting that is both super complicated and complex, but also done in a way that feels cohesive, where you're like, I get it?
Okay. So this is it's super contrived, or rather, it's a very large world that I'm talking about, but Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere.
Okay.
It is a story that takes place over 5 or 6 different, it's a book series, and it takes place over 5 or 6 different stories. Each one of them is set on a different planet with different magic system with a different, every one of them is its own unit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've read all of them, there are characters and themes and motifs that carry across all of the different series into this one unique galaxy, basically, of worlds.
Whoa.
And the big thing that he does it with is with NPCs. Like, you'll read a name or somebody will say, hey, yeah, my name is XYZ. And you're like, wait a second. That's from this other series that I just finished.
Yeah.
Weird. And then if you go into it, there's a website called The Coppermind, which is another deep cut for one of the magic systems in one of the series. That has like it's like a Wikipedia for the Cosmere, basically.
Right.
And you can be like, okay, where did I hear this name before? You like type it in, you pull up their page, and it's like, oh, he's in this story. And also, actually, he's in this story, but he's using a fucking different name or something.
Mm-hmm.
He's like going by it's crazy. But the big thing about it is it's not the main thing. It's not the main story. It's literally all of these background stuff. He's really showing this like shadow group that is knowledgeable about all of the different things and has these like ulterior motives.
Mm-hmm. But
all the big action is world inclusive. So you just kind of notice these things in the background.
I gotcha.
And that's so it's really like it's finally coming to a head in probably one of the next couple of series, because it really actually kind of came to a head in the most recent Stormlight book. But it's the end of that series. He said that's the end of the series. He's moving on to other stuff. So it kind of reached a climax, and now it's like, okay, now we're going to go look at something else.
Interesting. So has there been a story or a threat or some kind of thing that does unite the different planets and or stories? Or not
so
yet?
We haven't had a full like this world and this world are coming together to fight this threat. That hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Timmy Turner
or
meets
rather,
Jimmy Neutron.
Right. That's a very good way of putting it. Exactly like that. There's one group that actually is the threat. They're the ones that you kind of are the most noticeable as flitting around in the background. They are basically trying to, the bad guy is capitalism, really, when you get down to it, because they're basically trying to find a way to harness the different magic systems in all these different worlds and monetize it, basically.
Yeah.
So that's their whole thing. And we've seen one of their leaders was also like became a main antagonist in Stormlight, and that's what we see. We see that initial clash between the two. I'm not going to spoil anything because honestly, go freaking read them.
Yeah.
But we see that clash, and it doesn't turn out the way that you think it does, like you think it would. It's not like good triumphing over evil or evil triumphing over good. It's this weird fourth option. Like you didn't even realize that this was what's going to happen. But yeah, this new thing has happened, and it's thrown a wrench into everybody's fucking plans.
Yeah. I like stuff like that. I like when things are connected, even if it's just kind of like in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I like stuff like that where it's like, it's not going to make the biggest difference if you don't notice it, but it's there for the people who are paying attention for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's really fun. I know we try and do that with our little universe of dumb actual play stuff, but mostly it's just gags to make the players laugh at this point, at least.
Yeah.
But for me, I've brought it up before in other episodes for various reasons, but there's a time travel show that is on Netflix coming out of Germany called Dark, D-A-R-K, and it is genius. It is like, I will never look at a time travel show the same way ever again, or movie or any kind of IP ever again, because of how well it feels like these showrunners or writers did. Every single little detail is connected, and they're connected in ways where you're like, it gets to a point where you almost start to get frustrated, where you're like, does it even matter what the characters are doing? Because it feels like everything is already set up. Like,
right.
A character will go back in time. They find out that time travel exists. They go back in time. They're like, if I kill this person, my loved one will live in the or whatever, you know? So then they try and kill them, but then they get stopped in the process. And then you find out that's why that person has a scar, and they've always had that scar. And you're like, so has this always been the case that this person got attacked when they were a child by a person who's technically from the future, but then it plays into this being the way this is? And all of these questions, it just is insane. The connections go so deep. It's 3 seasons of a Netflix show, and it is genius level writing. Like, the connections are so deep and so intricate. It's beautiful, but it does set the bar for time travel stuff, where like, if you watch anything other than maybe Groundhog's Day, because at least that's trapped in a loop, so it's a little different. But like, like the idea that, for example, when you watch Back to the Future, spoilers for Back to the Future, but it's an old movie. I feel like we can get to it.
Yeah.
So the first Back to the Future, Marty McFly goes back to the 50s or something. I think it's the 50s. And his mom is a high schooler, and he accidentally messes up, and his mom and his dad are not going to meet. Oh no, he's vanishing from the photograph. He has to get them to meet again at the special dance, at the under the sea dance. But that's the only thing that seems to matter, is that one little event is getting them to meet, even if the circumstances of them meeting is really different. I mean, obviously, when he goes back to the present, things have changed. His, dad is more successful and has more money and different things of that nature. But like, I don't know, it never felt like every tiny decision makes a huge impact. Whereas like the butterfly effect, things of that nature, the short story novella, whatever it's called, Sounds of Thunder. That's where the phrase butterfly effect, even, I think, at least I'm pretty sure that's where it comes from, because they step off the path while they're in the past, and they literally step on a butterfly, and then the entire course of human history changes because of that one butterfly being stepped on, because that butterfly leads to this one tiny thing, which is like food for a bird, which leads to this thing, and it just spiders from there, and it becomes more and more complicated and more important. And it felt like Dark did a really good job with that. And so then a sub question onto this question of from the butt first is, what about the opposite? What about a story or a setting that felt very complicated and convoluted and like intricate, but maybe they missed the mark a little bit, and maybe there's reasons for that, and it's not like the end of the world. It's not that it's a bad story. It's just that they almost attempted something really complicated and kind of fell short a little bit, depending on how strict you're being about it and how harsh you want to be. Like, I'll say my example really quickly is just Pokemon. And that's only because like The first couple Pokemons, you're like, I get it. There's just like little creatures, we get it, blah blah blah. But they don't never really go into a ton of explanation of like, are those Pokemon replacing animals in the natural food chain of things and the ecological order? Like, are there normal ass animals? Like, can you, when you get calamari, are you specifically only eating Tentacool, or are you eating a normal squid and Tentacool is a slightly different thing, like an evolution onto that? We already find out that Clefairies maybe come from the moon because of moon
that
rocks.
Lickitung sushi, the Lickitung sushi minigame in Pokemon Stadium takes on a different kind of feel when you think about it that way.
And it's very strange in the first season. Every time they try and eat a Pokemon, like when Meowth looks at a Magikarp a certain way, you're like, okay, but maybe that makes sense. It's a Pokemon eating a Pokemon. Like, okay. But then like things, I mean, it can get crazy really fast. But then you have the legendary monsters, or rather Pokemon, D&D. Both from a crazy standpoint where they just keep building on it, and they built up, the power scaling happened so fast where it was like, okay, we have these legendary birds, they represent the elements, and then here's Lugia and Ho-Oh and that kind of stuff. And then wait a minute, also here's one that can control time, here's one that invented the earth, here's one that did this, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? It gets insane so fast, just like how intricate and powerful it just, and the idea that Ash and his fucking Pikachu
this Pokemon can make a fucking black hole when it wants to.
Or they're traveling into dreamlands, or they're doing this, or like even the one Pokemon movie, it might be like Pokemon 2000, or maybe it's the one right after that. I think it's Pokemon 3, the one with Entei, and Entei is just like making, or is it Entei or is it unknown? Somebody's making this little girl's dreams come true and just like bringing people to life and like creating all of this crazy things. And they capture Ash's mom, and she's like, now you're my mom. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? Pokemon really are like another level. The power scaling and how fast it happens in Pokemon is truly mind boggling. I'm sure there's someone out there's probably tons of YouTube videos that try to attempt to explain the whole thing, but my God, it is crazy. So does anyone come to mind for you, or?
I mean, pretty much any time travel show or movie, like Doctor Who was the first thing that came to my mind of super complex, but they don't really spend a whole lot of time explaining anything. And they're just kind of like, rather than the butterfly effect theory of time travel, it's very much the, okay, as long as these certain key events happen, it's good.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. I see a lot of shows kind of do that, which is like a smart way of, from a writing standpoint, a smart way to go about it, so that you're not digging yourself into a hole. I highly recommend the show Dark, because
here we go. Fast and the Furious. What the fuck has happened to that series?
Yeah.
The first movie was about them stealing, and this will date everybody involved, CRT TVs.
Yeah.
And DVD players.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is the big score. And then it just gets so crazy and convoluted. Tokyo Drift happens, and then they kind of go off the rails. Like Tokyo Drift, like that feels like it doesn't have anything to do with the series at all.
I know, and it's one of my favorite ones.
And then, it's great. But like, and then the later movies, oh my gosh.
It really is crazy, because at what point is the government just kind of letting this happen? How long can Vin Diesel's character get away with this before the government's like, okay, absolute vigilantes, like what is happening? I have stopped watching. I think Tokyo Drift is like the latest one in the series that I watched. I watched 1, 2, and 3.
Oh no, it gets,
and that's as much as I've ever seen.
It gets absolutely crazy. They're jumping cars through buildings. They get helicopters. I'm pretty sure there's a spaceship at one point.
Oh my God.
It's wild. Yeah.
Too fast, too
It's-
furious for this galaxy. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. That's insane. All right, let's get into the episode.
Let's do it.
Okay. So today we're talking about note keeping, but specifically we're talking about it from the point of view of the dungeon master. We're trying to impart some wisdom, knowledge, tips, and tricks for how to keep notes, how to keep track of everything, staying organized. And I thought it best to start with digital versus analog, which is by no means to say that you have to do one or the other. I use both. Most people use both to some degree. It's totally fine to use both. At the end of the day, there is no one way to do things. It's just what works for you. But I thought it would make sense to kind of go over some of the pros and cons of each. And despite my better faculties, I've decided to go not in alphabetical order and do digital first, which is crazy.
All right.
So digital pros, and feel free to add anything, Taylor, if anything comes to mind or if I missed anything. Digital pros. Number one, easy to keep track of across multiple devices. If you have a Google Doc that you've created on your laptop and you switch computers, go to your phone, go to the library computer, go to a friend's house, use their computer, you can still access it. That's really nice. That's a huge accessibility tool. Really, really nice. Also, it is, unless you're like, it depends on how you're keeping passwords and what sites you're using to keep track of some notes, but it's hard to lose. A physical thing you can lose pretty easily. God forbid your organization system in your house isn't ideal, but
be specific with your naming conventions so you can find stuff, because eventually that little folder gets full.
That's very, very true. Yeah. You definitely want to come up with your own systems for naming things and trying to at least stay consistent. Depends on where you're saving things.
Yeah.
In terms of how it's going to present on your computer.
A lot.
But
yeah, for our for the show notes, I generally just keep it sorted by most recently accessed, because that generally keeps what we're working on near the top.
Yeah.
But
we do try and keep it pretty consistent for the show notes. They all start with EP, and then the number, and then either the full title or an abbreviated version of the title that's easy to read. So you kind of know exactly what that episode's about. And that keeps things easy breezy. Beautiful cover girl. And so unless you're losing passwords or like getting logged out a ton, it's hard to lose things. Presumably you'll be able to find it. You can get access to it. And speaking of finding things, the Control F feature is a godsend. It really is like the one thing that I think and I'm an analog girly. I love paper and pencil. I love having physical notes. I'm never going to stop doing that. But the ability to just click Control F, or if you're using a Mac like myself, Command F, either way, to be able to find the exact words that you're looking for in a huge multi-page document. And this is true for digital copies of TTRPGs, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons, or if you have like a digital copy of, let's say, Ivory Tower being made by our friend Mason, which more on that later. Stay tuned. But like, it's just so easy to find things. You literally just Control F, Sphinx City, and then like when I have the Sphinx City thing that has all the locations open, I can't tell you how nice it is to be like, where the fuck is the library? And I can just go Control F, library. Oh, it's in this borough or this district or neighborhood or whatever. It's so nice. That alone is putting digital kind of towards the top. The next thing I put is that it's very easy to share. If you want a second opinion, you want to share the document with your players, could not be easier than just having it in one of these ways. It depends on which service or program you're using, because some are just naturally a little bit easier than others. Google Docs, very easy. A Word document, pretty easy. You know, like there's a couple things that are like very, very easy. Other ones are easy, but there might be like an extra step or two that make it a little bit just annoying, but not impossible. For example, like Obsidian is a really great tool. I know a ton of dungeon masters and game masters and people who design games who use it. But when you try and share that document with somebody who doesn't have Obsidian, then it can get a little annoying where it's like, oh, one of you has to pay for it in order to share things in a way that makes them also editable by the other person. It can get a little annoying. But like Obsidian is a great program. It just has some extra steps for sharing. So that's like one of those things. This is also it goes to digital's accessibility. It's very accessible. It's just everybody can presumably read it. You don't have to worry about legibility when it comes to handwriting. It keeps things pretty uniform. So there's like some consistency there. People are used to reading a Google document, whereas like your own personal outline technique that you use in your handwritten notes might be different person to person. Yeah, like
not a chance. I have trouble reading my own handwritten notes.
That's always a funny thing. It's crazy handwriting.
That's how I generally do my note keeping when I'm doing actual play stuff. It's just faster.
You mean like physical or a pen and paper?
Pen and paper, yeah. It's just faster.
Yeah.
But
it's also
looks like
a
chicken
question
scratch
of like
and nobody's
screens,
reading it.
of like how much screen space do you have or need, or like can you take digital notes while still, if you're using cameras, if you're using a VTT. Some VTTs like Foundry and like a couple others have note keeping things built in that you can keep track of, but then you need to be logged into that service in order to look at the notes, which is annoying because depending on the program, some require like the server to be accessed, which means that the DM has to be logged on, which is really dumb. But then there's also like, in a perfect world, I would love to take digital notes during actual plays. The problem is, number one, a lot of them are being recorded for actual plays. They're being recorded, so I don't want the clicky clackies. Number two, I only have so many screens, so that means I have to like close or move aside a screen that I'm using for one thing in order to have notes up, because I can just naturally type a little bit faster than I can write. So like, there's like an argument to be made there. Like when I was in school for pre-med, I was always taking digital notes, and it was only because I can type so much faster than I can write. Like I would love to take written notes, but I just literally couldn't write as fast as some of the professors talk. And depending on the professor, some professors, it was like, if it comes out of my mouth, it could be on a test. And other professors were like, if it's not on these pre-made PowerPoints, don't worry about it. So for those classes, I don't have to worry as much. But for the classes where it's like cell bio, and the professor's like, if I say it, I don't care if it's on the notes. I don't care if it's in your book. If it comes out of my mouth, it could be on the test. That's scary. And you need to write down fucking everything. To the point where some people recorded the entire lectures and rewatched them. And we'll get into that as a strategy later on. But that's a pretty advanced and intense, both from a just the amount of space you need digitally to be able to do that, especially for actual plays. At least the lecture was only like an hour long. But anyway, so easy to share, much easier to collaborate. Taylor and I can both work on our show notes at the same time or simultaneously, or he can work on one thing while I'm working on another thing, but all in the same space. Like it is much easier to collaborate because it's not restricted to Taylor and I being in the same building or state or time zone, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I think that there's something to be said about that. It would be ideal. I would love if Taylor and I lived closer together and we could go grab a coffee and just sit at a table shooting the shit and like having notebooks spread. Like that would be dope. That would be so nice to have that like tangibility about it. It just unfortunately isn't in the cards right now until I convince Taylor to move to Jersey, where it's probably way more expensive than Virginia. Anyway, so those are some of the things I think are pros with digital stuff. Oh, I also wrote that it's useful for tables that play in person and virtually. Because of the being able to spread things, to share things with people and stuff like that, being able to quick send a document and be like, here are the setting notes, or here's like the Pantheon that I've created or whatever. Whereas if you only have it on paper, you have to take a couple extra steps to disseminate that information unless you're playing in person. So, any other pros that you can think of?
I mean, we pretty much touched on all of them.
Yeah. It's also because of the way
Let's-
tabs work, you can have more things
yeah,
out.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
granted,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
only looking at one tab at a time unless you split the screen or have multiple monitors. But like when you're looking at a notebook, unless people listening are not going to be able to get this, Taylor and I are looking at each other. So I'm showing Taylor a visual aid. You guys are not going to get this. So excuse me. I'm showing Taylor a notebook. But like, unless I have it open, even then I can only see 2 pages. I have to constantly be
Right.
flipping between pages, figuring out where to go. Whereas at least with like tabs, you can kind of quick click on different tabs for different pages of notes or different topics or something.
One other pro I would put in there is being able to do multimedia, of being able to put pictures and stuff in your
Oh,
notes.
true. Unless you're drawing a ton of things, which is
Unless you're drawing a ton of things. But like I'm talking about like I use for a lot of my digital note keeping, if I've got a item or a monster stat block, I'll keep a bunch of the like stat blocks. I'll cut them out of whatever their page is, like do a screen cap, cut it out, and then I can put that stat block or that visual reference of whatever I'm talking about. Like if I'm trying to describe something, you can put that in your notes.
in the
And
notes
so you don't have to
specifically.
go
Yeah,
hunting
so
around
it's
for it. Yeah.
in the same place. Yeah. That's actually a really good idea. I recently have been just compiling a separate document that just has all of the monster stats.
Yeah.
And then I just like, presumably the ones I need for that session are just like at the bottom. But then I just keep adding to it so that it's like, if for some reason I randomly need a monster stat and I don't feel like grabbing a book and having a physical book on my desk, because here's another pro for digital. It cleans up your desk space.
Very true.
You don't have to have your book, your notes, your microphone, your setup, your laptop, your computer, your second monitor, your headphones, your drinks, like all on the same desk, and then it can get cluttered and crazy. So those are some pros for digital. Now we'll go over some cons. I think these are all like, some of these are just like opinions more than anything else. But like, number one, you're dependent on technology, which means that you're dependent on electricity and Wi-Fi or the devices themselves, like just having a computer, having a phone, like all of these luxuries that we're very used to. But like, in order to have digital notes, you need a way to have digital notes, which means you need electricity, you need presumably Wi-Fi for a lot of them, depending on, obviously you can do Microsoft Word offline, but like if you're trying to share it with somebody, then you need Wi-Fi to be able to send it to somebody. So there's a lot of like things there. Like, I mean, how many times have we had an actual play or stream or a recording session be duped by either Wi-Fi or electricity? Like, it just happens all the time.
Yeah.
So it's another thing to consider. I also just wrote yet another tab or monitor being used. Just the idea that like sometimes it can get overwhelming when you have that many tabs open. Because if you're playing virtually, then you already have the VTT, presumably. You have some kind of connection app, whether that's Discord, Zoom, what have you. Then you probably have like a place where you're getting music, or there's a place for your notes. There's like so many different things that you could have open all at the same time. And so having yet another tab is just, it can be overwhelming for people who maybe aren't very tech savvy. Some people, it's like, oh, that's not a big deal at all. But for other people, that could be like another thing where you're just like, oof, it feels very overwhelming having all of these different screens and stuff. This one is definitely a little bit of an opinion. Digital to some is just not as nice as having a physical piece of media. Obviously, it also just depends on what we're talking about specifically. But like, even for games, still for actual plays, I would rather have like paper notes than a digital note, because of, and some of this is stupid because it's like very specific to actual play production. But like, I want to look kind of in the camera. I don't want to constantly be looking off camera for like a specific note, even if I have the Control F feature, which is,
I put my notes right on that monitor right there.
Yeah.
I cover my own camera up. So I have you and my notes right there. So I could like,
Yeah, that's the thing is like, yeah,
Yeah.
my desk can't even, the upstairs desk that I use, I can't even allow that. Like I can't have the two monitors too close.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm never looking at anybody in the face. And so I sacrifice the second monitor for the sake of looking as close to the people as I can. And it's just one of those things. So I like having a physical piece of media. And this is true, like when it comes to like TTRPGs, like when I buy a TTRPG, I personally would love to have a physical copy of it, right? Like physical copies of books as opposed to an e-reader. However, playing those TTRPGs, there is something to be said about the accessibility that digital gives you when it comes to sharing character sheets, sharing the book itself, like not having to take actual physical screenshots with my phone and take a picture of the book and send that picture. I've had to do that so many times just because I like having physical copies of the thing. You know, like if I'm reading a book, I would rather read a physical book than a digital book. But that's just me, and I recognize that.
I'm the exact opposite. 100%. I'd much rather have my everything digitally, because again, it comes down to the space side of things, of having space to put stuff. And I don't have a lot of space, so everything being digital for me is a-okay peachy keen.
Yeah, no, it's a huge, definitely a safe space. That is absolutely certain. And then I just wrote more blue light, just because lately I've been so on screens that like my whole face feels like it's frying off. And then this last one, you might be teaching an AI model and having your work be stolen from a dumb fucking piece of shit robot. Yeah, AI, I'm talking to you. Yeah, I just, you know, depending on the software that you're using, Google Docs, I think, is one of the ones that's guilty of something like this, is that depending on the terms of service and terms of agreement, which no one reads except for like the handful of people who then make a TikTok video about it, and I can just watch that instead of actually reading pages and pages of legalese. But often things like this are taking your work and plugging it into some AI model that they're trying to teach. So that is just something to be mindful of. It's not the end of the world for the sake of this argument, but it is definitely under the list of cons for when it comes to digital, because no one's taking my paper notes. So I hit myself in the head. Okay, now moving on to analog. The pros. I think it feels more personal because you're physically creating something with your hands, and like it feels a little bit more tactile. And I made this note very specifically. I think, without doing any research, I think that it leads to memory and investment. I think that you'll remember things a little bit more if you're like physically creating them with your hands and like writing things down. Not to say that you're not obviously most of the time using your hands to type things. I just think that there's something different about the tactile experience of writing things as opposed to typing things. But this is more of an opinion than anything else, which is why I put it feels more personal as opposed to it is more personal. I can tell you maybe disagree.
I mean, I don't really agree too much with that, because again, I generally do like digital note keeping, when especially when it comes to DM stuff. All of my notes are on the computer. When I'm doing actual plays as a player, I do use a notebook, but I don't feel like that makes me remember anything better. It's just I have notes so I can look back at stuff.
Right.
So
yeah, that's what I mean. I think there's more of opinion than anything else, but I do like having the ability of just having something physical there.
Yeah.
And then you have more freedom when creating it. It's a piece of paper and a pencil, so you can go absolutely nuts. You don't have to adhere to the restraints of whatever that program is. So obviously you can add pictures and stuff to it, which are probably way better than what you're drawing. But on a piece of paper, you can do anything. You can have crazy arrows drawn in weird locations, subheadings and weird bullet point conventions, all different kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? Make little boxes around things. You don't need to know code or how to do all of the hotkeys in order to access it. It's I mean, talk about accessible. Hopefully nothing is more or accessible than a piece of paper and a pen. So
Yeah.
I do like something about that. All of these pros, with the exception of the last one, do feel like opinions. It feels like I'm fighting for analog's life here. The last one is definitely a real pro. You don't need internet or electricity at all.
Yeah.
You just need something to
Yep.
write on and to write with. And so we've got that one in the tank. That one,
Yeah.
we're hitting that one hard. In a power outage, no one's doing digital notes, okay? Unless they have a generator and some kind of hotspot. And now we'll go into cons.
Yeah.
So for analog, depending on how diligent you are, they're probably less organized. It depends on you
That's
personally. It depends on Taylor's raising his hand for our audio
That's me.
listeners.
Yep.
It depends on
Yep.
your own personal style and like note keeping in general, but it can be pretty easy to get out of hand and get disorganized when it comes to physical notes. I would suggest, as somebody who has fallen into this trap time and time again and will continue to do so despite my advice that I'm giving here, try to keep each notebook to very specific topics and or settings or games, because if you just write down whatever thought pops into your head into the closest notebook near you.
Buying all these notebooks sounds awful expensive.
Luckily, these 70-page guys are pretty cheap.
Okay.
Pretty cheap. You can get like, especially during like back to school sales and stuff. I mean, one of these is like $2. So you can get like a 10-pack for like $10 sometimes. It really depends.
Okay.
Because I'm not getting like fancy notebooks. I'm
Right.
getting like the absolute shittiest 70-page spiral, like these like really shitty colored ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, it is like a physical thing that you have to purchase. You have to purchase the pens and having writing materials and stuff. So that is definitely something to consider. But it is just inherently harder to find the things that you're looking for unless you're very organized. So if you just write down in your Sphinx City notebook a note about Mythos, good fucking luck.
Right.
Hopefully you remember that you wrote down a Mythos note in the Sphinx City notebook and that you can go back and find it and transfer it over. Would have been better just to write that in the Mythos notebook, you know? So that can be a little frustrating sometimes. And you have to find like where on the page you wrote it sometimes. And like there isn't a Control F feature. So
No.
inherently harder to find things. It's harder to share with people, especially if they live in another state. You have to send screenshots or literal pictures and photos of your notes. Obviously, handwriting comes into play big time, because if people can't read it, then what good is it? And so that is like a whole thing. I've had to do that many, many times. I still to this day refuse to give D&D Beyond any money. So when I'm invited into a D&D game and or actual play, I will make a paper character sheet. I take a photo of it and I send that to the DM and I say, is this okay? And 9 times out of 10 it is. And I go, thank you. Because if the DM isn't going to share all of the cool books and stuff on D&D Beyond so that I can actually make a character that isn't just the very specific things that are for free, then what is the point, you know? So, and last but not least, it can be lost or destroyed.
Yeah.
It's a physical note. You could have somebody spill something on it.
I lose notebooks a lot.
Yeah. I don't lose notebooks, like the entire notebook, but I'll lose a page where I'll just like lose where I wrote something. Where it's like, I know I wrote something down to this effect. I know I wrote down something that I was going to use for this, or, I mean, it's so weird. I mean, in a way, there's like a really flowery way of being like, maybe this is a good thing. And it's not, but there's a way to argue for it, I think, in that I can't tell you how many times I've written down like, hey, I have an idea for an adventure, an encounter, an entire campaign, whatever it may be, right? And I'll write it down. But it's in a random notebook and I can never find it. So then eventually I have to rewrite it. And what's going to happen is that shitty situation is going to force me to, I can only remember the most important parts.
Right.
And so you start kind of
It condenses
condensing and really
Yeah.
prioritizing the most important parts that make that idea so helpful. But it is crazy. I highly recommend the Notes app if you have a phone, whether it's the iPhone or a different phone. I guarantee your smartphone has a way to keep track of notes. Just jot down a note thing. I have a huge list where the title, the overhead title is D&D ideas. And I've started doing like each bullet point is it's another idea. And I start it with like what type of idea that is. So if it's an idea for like a TikTok short, it'll say, it'll be bullet point, short, colon, and then the idea. And as much or as little as I need to get back into that feeling that this idea gave me. Sometimes I can just write something really small where it's like, talk about the Birdman NPC. And that's like all I need to know. Birdman NPC, I know exactly what that is from Sword Coast Coup. I'm just going to offer this NPC idea. Or sometimes I'll have to write like a much more because it's specific. But that's been a huge help. Just having, I have my phone on me all the time, for better or for worse. I'm fucking attached to the thing. So yeah, it works for me.
Yeah. My problem with doing phone notes is I will make the notes on my phone and then I'll completely forget that they're on there and never go back and look at it.
Yep.
Yeah. My brain's like, okay, yeah, well, it's down now. Don't have to think about that ever again.
Yep. Yeah. It does depend on. Luckily, the D&D ideas notes app thing that I have is like it's for that. It's for like anytime I can't think of an idea, I'm like, okay, or hey, I need to make a TikTok video today. What should I do? Okay, here's this list of like 100 ideas. Like I have so many. It's insane. But the important thing is that at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong. It's what works for you.
Correct.
It's however you can best keep track of your own notes. Try new methods, see what feels good and what yields the best results. So you can always change things over time and figure things out. But now we're going to talk really briefly about the different stages of a D&D campaign or game or whatever, and how your notes can help you and maybe how you could figure some things out. Some best practices and stuff. So I started off with like pre-game. So this is stuff that happens before the game has even begun. Or like, and the word game there, you can switch to campaign, session, whatever. But this is like before the game. So obviously I love to use paper for this first part. And that's just general outline kind of stuff. It's like your base thoughts. So this is like when I'm outside and I'm just kind of like, it's a beautiful day outside. I'm chilling and I have a notebook with me. I'm hanging out and then I can just write down the coolest ideas where I'm just like, hey, what if a fucking family of frogs got isekai'd over to a fantasy adventure and now they're people? And it's just like the first thoughts, is where I get a lot of my stupid ideas. You can write down overarching themes, big picture ideas, important tentpole stuff, which is to say the things that the rest of your campaign are going to hang on. Whether that's the BBEG, the tone, the themes, anything that is a defining trait of this setting, campaign, encounter, what have you.
For this stage, for pretty much all the stages, I use digital. But for this stage, I will start an outline with like the very far left set of bullet points, like the main ones. I'll just list out the things that I need to go over, such as BBEG setting, how the magic system, like how it all generally works or something like that. And then once I get to that point, then I start bouncing between all of them and making each section a little bit bigger. Okay. This is going to be the name. This is their backstory. This is, we're going for a real dark tone. We're trying to, any kind of weird places, like important places, stuff like that. And as the kind of story fleshes out more in my head, by the time I'm done, I have a 4-page outline.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, that's definitely a great way to go about it. I think the main reason I use a lot of paper for the early stages, especially, and for like in between games and in between sessions, like I do it as session prep. I'll often put things on paper, is because the amount of desk space I have is like, it's just really nice to have like just this small notebook to have so that I can keep my screens the way that I currently have them, with like cameras on this one, Roll20 on that one. But like, it's also because I do a lot of stuff outside. So I just don't want to bring my laptop outside. Macs, depending on the version you have, are really fucking annoying with sunlight, like how visible they are or lack thereof. It's like one of those things where you're like, why is this fucking laptop $1,000? I can't even see it outside. It's so annoying. Turn the light down and then you can just see yourself and you're like, God, I have a pimple there? What the fuck is going on? Anyway, so I personally, this is very specific to me, is I like starting with analog and then refining in the move to digital. So then I'll do kind of what you're doing, but it's like a mix of the two, where it's like I'm bringing a lot of my paper notes over to the digital, and that's when I start making those different categories and different things so that I can build on them and then do subheadings and tertiary headings and bullet points and everything, just to keep things a little organized. I've found that like a lot of times my normal writing style would have me write like straight up paragraphs, which is like not helpful when it comes to notes that you're trying to find stuff fast. It makes more sense to do like bullet points kind of stuff, so that it's just easier to like have your eyes look at the screen and like find those pieces of information that you're looking for. Even going so far as to like using italics or underline or boldening certain texts, or even using colors and different things to kind of make certain points stick out. But for me, I use pen and paper in the beginning. I go nuts. I write down every single idea that comes to mind, different things. It's almost like stream of consciousness. There's lots of arrows. There's nothing holding me back at this point. So it's very much just like writing things down, going crazy. And then when I take the notes and I'm putting them into the digital place, like Google Docs, Milanote, or Word, or whatever, Obsidian, then I'm starting to refine, organize, categorize, edit along the way, keeping the most important things. Any like things where it's like, oh, these two ideas actually counteract, like I need to fix that. Or getting rid of things that just like don't add to the original idea. And all the while, and this is an important note, no matter how you're taking notes, remember this when you're world building and also jotting down ideas before the game has even begun. Leave blanks for character influence, for the PCs to have their own stamp on things. Remember, this game is best when you are collabing, and part of that means you need to have there be either A, you need there to be blanks, or B, you need to go in with like feeling okay with changing things based on the players. Because you could do either. You could either just straight up leave a blank where you're like, I didn't even name the king. I have no idea who runs this town. I'm going to wait for the players to talk to me. Or you can be like, here's who runs the town. But if the players have a better idea, then I'll switch this guy out. I've done both. That way, if for some reason none of the players have an idea for the king, you already have one in standing. But, and then I do think that the more organized and thoughtful that you are in the pregame, the easier things are to find, use, and share with the rest of your note keeping, lore writing, and world building. It's just like the idea of being proactive rather than reactive, of just the more time you put into the early stages, then it's like the same with production, of like pre-production is like really where everything, the more time you put into pre-production, the less time you need for post-production kind of stuff. So absolutely. I think that plays into it. And then I also wrote down like pre-session notes, which is just like slightly more specific to an individual session rather than like an entire game or setting or world. This is what I always do. I always do a small blurb on what just happened in the last session or where the party is picking up. I just write that at the top of the page just as a reminder to me of being like, okay, they just got to Waterdeep, and just like they just talked to this person, or they're in the middle of this dungeon or something, just as a quick little reminder. And then most often I do a checklist of a couple of things that you as the DM would like to hit, or at least some encounters to have planned. And remember that encounters does not mean combat. It just means encounters. It'd be exploration, social, combat, a combination of the three, whatever.
Stuff the party's doing.
Yeah, it's stuff for the party
You
to
should
do.
have, you should have
Exactly.
stuff.
And I love having a little checklist because it's perfect for the idea of like recycling. Anything you don't use in that section, you can move to the next session. And it depends on how important they are and how much they play into the central plot. The BBG are like really important present things. But sometimes they're like little things of like for a session that I have tonight, it's really little stuff of just like, I'm going to have different NPCs from each party member's backstories, find them. So it's really brief of like, one of the characters' names is Namfoodle. So it's like, okay, Namfoodle's brother is having issues with a loan shark because they haven't paid for wizard school. That's one of the issues. This character, Pixri, they find out that their sister's in town doing a gladiator competition show. Okay. And these are like, I'll literally put a little checkbox because again, I'm drawing it. So I'm drawing a little open square. I write the idea down, open square, write the idea down. In that, I might even include like what the NPC's name is, what their voice is going to sound like, because I care about stuff like that. If you're not a person who does voices or cares about voices, then you don't need to write that, obviously. And then from there, it's like, if at any point we hit a little bit of a lull, instead of saying, hey, everybody make a group perception check or something like that, or being like, it's just a quick way of being like, Namfoodle, you notice a familiar face at the end of the street. Go ahead and make a history check. And then you're like, oh shit, it's definitely your brother. And then, boom, there we go. We've moved on to the next point. And I have all of those different things ready to go. And it's as if I'm pulling them out of nowhere, but it's because I have a little checklist of potential encounters. And if they don't happen this session, hey, I just move them over to the next session's notes, no problem. And then like Taylor was bringing up before, always helpful to have a couple of bookmarked. If you're doing a physical monster manual, have like note cards or bookmark or dog ear. I mean, dog ear is not my favorite technique, but you know what I mean? Some kind of way of keeping pages, that's fine. Or way easier, way better, definitely the way to go. An online document where you've either screenshot or taken pictures or however I take physical pictures because I don't have a digital monster manual. So I take pictures with my phone, airdrop it to my computer, put it into Google Docs, and that's how I do it. But that's just because I don't have digital monster manuals. But
I do have a digital copy of the monster manual. So I do, like I said before, of like I'll find the page and I'll crop out just that stat block, and then it goes into I have a huge Google it's like a Google drawing page that is just all it is just pictures from the monster manual that I have put into one spot so that I can easily get at stuff. Another really helpful thing that I also do is if you get the little the document flags, they have it like if you ever sign a huge document, like a lawyer, whatever it is,
the little stickies,
the little sticky note things that you put on the page.
Okay.
I use those so many. Like my monster manual is literally all the way around, has real quick little blurb of what this monster is, and it's just stuck to the page so that I can go, okay, I need XYZ monster. There it is. I can flip right to that page.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. That's a great idea. I sometimes will do a cheap version of that, which is just sticking the note card long ways and having it stick out a little bit, and then doing another one on the top of the page and then on the bottom of it, so they're slightly different. Because sometimes you find two monsters that are in the same fucking book and you're like, God dang, I gotta flip between these two pages. How annoying. Can't stand that sometimes.
Yeah, here's my... Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're so muted.
I touched the mic. And maybe you're not even using those monsters in that particular session, but having some ready just in case is so nice that you don't have to take a break and be like, hold on, let me find out what you guys are fighting really quick. Just having some like, I have a couple of monsters saved in like a Google Doc where it's like, I could make these work anywhere. You know, they're not like so specific where it's like a frost giant and it's like, well, why the fuck is a frost giant in the middle of the place? But they're like kind of vague enough where they could work anywhere. So that's really nice.
I very rarely use monsters as not as they're written, but like the type of creature that it is. Like this Kuatoa, I can flavor a million different ways and make it fit my setting.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a little frog guy, but you know, it's got
The Kuoto is great.
so yeah, it's got a handful of actions, a bite, a spear, and a net. That could be anything. It has, you know, some interesting reactions and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll just use this stat block and flavor it as I need it to
Yeah.
be.
No, that's huge. And then getting into during the game, because now the game is happening. The game has begun. We are in the game. As a dungeon master, I got to be honest, I'm taking as minimal notes as possible. And it's because I don't have two other arms. If I had two other arms that could be taking notes the entire time while my brain is also playing the game, that's one thing. But that's not the case. I can't take notes and play the game as the DM in the way that I like. So I have to do it a totally different way, which means you have a couple of options, I suppose. I do take some notes. I write down things that are super important that I genuinely feel like I need to remember. And this comes from a history of not writing those things down and wishing that I had later on.
Yeah.
When I look back at my notes and I go, why didn't I write that down? And after 7-8 years of DMing, I've now figured out a couple of things where it's like, write that one down. You're gonna want to have written that down. And for me, it includes NPC names, like just to even if it's like an NPC that I know and like I'll remember Thornsteel, for example, but like I want to write down that they met him or who in the party met him or something, you know? So I'll write down Thornsteel. Places that the PCs have been to. Okay, they went to this magic shop. Okay, got it. Maybe the voices that I used for specific NPCs, especially if they'll come up again, just to remind myself. Hey, Raspy Prospector. Well, okay then. Done. Got it. And then another one that's so annoying, but also I do think it's important for consistency, is the prices of things. So that if the party is quoted saying, yes, I can fix your magic carpet, but it's going to cost you this much, write that down. Because maybe they need to save up for it, and it's just helpful to have it, because then you're putting an extra thing on your party where you're like, hey, did anybody write down what it is? And then one of the party members will make a joke about like, yeah, you said it was only 10 gold. Ha ha ha. And then you're like, yeah, but did I? And then you're just stuck in this weird limbo. I find that writing down the prices of things, as annoying as it is so helpful. Just to be like, hey, okay, in the dungeon you guys found a bunch of gems. Write down the gems are worth 50 gold each. Write that down.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Life-saving.
Yeah.
Life-saving having that. I already spoke about this, but having a checklist before the game, that's huge. I consult the checklist through the session. It's so helpful. You can include things like party-wide encounters, but you can also include solo PC encounters. For example, the Thieves Guild is looking for the party because of something that they stole. It's just a nice little reminder to yourself of like, hey, maybe this isn't like the main plot, which should be pretty easy to remember, but it's like a side plot or it's a connected plot or something. Or, hey, the Thieves Guild is looking for that one party member, Joshua Tree, because of something that they stole.
Right.
Something like that. I also think, hey, if your table has a note taker, if there's one player at your table who's really good at taking notes, use them. And use them in a nice way. I don't mean use them, drain their soul, but like rather they're already taking great notes. Work with them, get a screenshot or a copy of their notes to use as a reference. That is so helpful. And I can't imagine that they'll say no to that. If they do, honestly, kind of weird that they would just be like, no.
Or they're writing really mean things about you in the notes.
Maybe they are. Yeah. And you'll have to, answer that question on your own.
Take care of it. No, but I've been lucky enough to be at tables with great note taker people, so I've never had to be that person, and thank God. Because I'm like Justin, it's very hard for me to stay in the moment and also write stuff down.
Yeah, 100%. It's just hard to I've done it before, but it's so annoying as the DM to be like, okay, and hold on, let me just write this down. 50 gold each. okay. And then the shopkeeper says, well,
Right.
thank you for
Right.
I just like hate that. I've already made it very clear that like I think the most important thing is having fun at the table for everybody, including the DM.
Mm-hmm.
Immersion, I think, can take a back seat a lot of the times, but it does suck when you have to break immersion for what is kind of like note keeping, which feels very clerical and just kind of like this
Yeah.
extra little thing. But so that is a thing. Now, this last tip for keeping notes during the game is advanced, and it is like for a certain group of people, and that's recording the sessions. This is a very hefty technique. I'm not saying that everyone should do this. I actually don't think most people should do this, but I do know a bunch of people who do this. There is something to be said about it. It is very helpful because we, in a matter of speaking, do this when it comes to actual plays, depending on the schedule of our editing. And it is so helpful when it comes to like, I remember so specifically the public domains, editing those episodes as we were playing the game. Our scheduling worked out in such a way that it was really helpful. I got to rewatch all 3-hour episodes before doing the next episode.
Right.
And it was helpful.
It helps.
Yeah, just because
helps.
it's like, yeah, you're going to pick up on the little tiny things. If two players make a little joke, you get to see it again because there's only so much you can pay attention to in the moment.
There's a lot of stuff you get that kind of gets lost in the sauce of the moment. Your brain is somewhere else while the players are doing something, and you kind of catch what they're doing, and it generally, can be just like a little side beat thing, but it's fun to be able to pull those little side beat moments back into the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention you'll notice like little, like if there's any plot holes or like open ends of things, or like Taylor was saying, tiny details, small references to make everyone feel heard and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you got that. No, it is very fun. So it's a very hefty technique, but you can use something like Zoom or StreamYard, OBS, or Craig to record your sessions. You only really need the audio, but that's up to you. It's just very time consuming. Not only is it huge file storage, but it also is, it's just time consuming. Because let's say you're doing a 2-hour session, then I misdid the numbers here. But if you are playing a 2-hour session, that's 2 hours. And then re-listening to that is at least another 2 hours. And that doesn't include pausing and having to write down notes and stuff, or re-listen to a scene or something. So it can be a lot. I know people who did that as a pre-med student in college, where they would record lectures and then watch them back. And I never did that. I was just like, that's just too time consuming. If the lecture's an hour, that's 2 hours that you're taking twice the time. I was a big fan of rewriting notes for when it comes to like memory and like recall. Was just like, I have my digital notes that I'm writing as fast as I can, typos included, whatever. I'm going as fast as I can. And then I would rewrite them into a notebook, and I would do it real nice and special little bullet point, all the dumb things. But yeah, so then we get into post game. The session has ended. We still have other sessions maybe going forward, but after this session, after this game, what do we do with the notes? So where are you putting your notes? Where are you keeping your notes? This is another question for, are you going digital or analog or both? You have your special notebooks, you have your websites, your different file storage systems, whatever you're using. Naming conventions, super important again.
Yeah, this is when I take my handwritten notes that I took during the game that were real fast, sloppy, dirty, and they get put into the actual like canon outline for the season.
Yeah.
Or for this campaign.
Right. Yeah. Huge. Absolutely.
Because you're right. The act of rewriting your notes does something to lock it in.
Yeah, definitely. Just having to do it again. The repetition is obviously huge. I was a big fan of flashcards when it came to like regurgitating science stuff for bio. And then like, how often are you going to look at those notes? Like, obviously that plays into some of the things. It depends on how important the game is, because obviously we're going to get into that in a second. But if we want the world to feel like it's lived in, the way that Lucille wrote this question really made it feel like you want the world to feel legit, like it's an actual place.
Right.
And therefore things are moving and happening even if the main characters aren't in the scene, right? Like the world moves on. It's not like certain video games where like everybody is just at pause until the main characters get there. It's like, no, the world's moving.
They're doing stuff. Like there's an economy. There are
there's
other
holidays,
people.
the time marches on.
Yeah.
The moon is still revolving, whatever it is. So it's like if you want to do that, you kind of have to take a certain number of notes.
You have to. Yeah, you absolutely have to. I know I've fallen down this pitfall, and Justin, you've also fallen down this pitfall of thinking, "Oh, that's cool enough. I'll remember."
Oh yeah.
You're not going to remember.
Because another cool thing will happen, and that will kick out the other one. Or something.
Exactly.
You writing things down is huge, whether it's physically writing them down on a piece of paper or something, and hopefully you're writing it down in the appropriate notebook, like we already said, but also putting it down digitally, having it somewhere is better than just trying to depend on your own memory. The hubris of it all.
And and it really is like those are the things that really flesh everything out. The keeping track of this specific NPC that the party really seem to like or hate. Keeping track of this one thing that a player said about their backstory that you can work into what's going on. There are a lot of important bits that kind of happen in the offbeats that's what you need the notes for.
100%.
And that's what really makes the world, those offbeats, how the players are reacting in the offbeats, that's what really makes the world feel lived in.
Yeah, it's really important. I think it makes a huge difference. This is the tiniest of things. It also shows that you as a dungeon master are like, that you care, that you're invested. Because when the players do it makes me feel really good as the DM. Like if I mention a tiny detail and the players write it down in their notes and they bring it up later on, I know that it makes me feel like heard,
right?
In a way that makes me feel appreciated. So why not the other direction? And then last, sorry, I'm just reading the notes. There's also other factors like, I put this in here just as like a reminder to everybody, myself included, that also like how good your notes are and how intense they need to be. There's other factors at play, like how many games are you currently running or playing in, as well as just like your normal life schedule. Like as much as this is cool and really it can feel very important, like it's a game. And so like how much time do you or should you be putting into this? And that's a question you have to ask and answer yourself, because only you know your full life schedule and like the other things in your life going on and stuff. Because I just think that like we all need to remember, and this is so much of a note to myself as it is to anybody else, but that there are more important things than how lived in your fantasy TTRPG world building is,
Yeah.
Like, is that the deciding factor of whether or not your table's having a good time, yourself included? If it is for some reason, then maybe put a little bit more time into it. But honestly, I doubt that it is. And so I think it's important. I wrote down 3 little notes. Number 1, don't take yourself too seriously. This shouldn't feel like work to the point of where it feels almost like you're submitting a portfolio to your boss or something, or like you're sending this to a publisher or whatever. And it's like, well, my magic system isn't perfect. I'm not Brandon Sanderson. And it's like, dog, you don't need to be Brandon Sanderson. You're not writing
you don't need to be
novels. Like it's fine.
You don't need to be Abria. You don't need to be Matt Mercer. You don't need to be Brennan. You don't need to be these people. This is a game. You're here to have fun. If you're doing that, then you win.
Then you win D&D.
That's the only way to win D&D pretty much any tabletop in general is the only way to win is to have fun. That's the win condition for these games.
That's the win condition. Number 2, don't prioritize your tabletop role-playing games above your own self-care and health. Just like, hey, at the end of the day, what matters more? Your tabletop fake world and imaginative characters or your own well-being? And obviously the latter is true. And last but not least, Your players should be understanding that your life cannot and should not revolve around this make-believe world. Effort is fine and good, but not at the expense of your well-being. Kind of plays right into the second point, but it's the same idea of just like, ideally you have players who get it, you know? Yesterday, I played almost an entire session that was meant to be recorded, didn't click the record button, and we went through some incredible scenes, beautiful emotions, character development out the wazoo. I could not have been more upset when I found out that I didn't record any of it. And the players were so cool and understanding about it that if it weren't for that, I may have spiraled, but I didn't that much. I didn't spiral too much because the players were so cool with it. Like at one point I was really frustrated with myself, and I said out loud to them, I said, gang, I'm really sorry for wasting your guys' time. And they reminded me, because I needed to hear it in that moment. They were like, we don't feel like our time was wasted. Like, we had an incredible session with friends.
Right.
So even though, do we have to redo some of those scenes? Sort of. And I'm going to throw in a bunch of crazy monkey wrenches to make it feel at least a little new.
Right.
That made me feel really good, you know, kind of reminded me why we're doing this, and that it's not just for the final product and for the actual play and for the result. It's like the destination is just as important. And so that was really nice to hear.
The journey.
It's all about the journey. So I hope that this helped Lucille. I hope that this helped anybody trying to figure out how best to keep notes and keep track of everything. I think we're going to do an episode within the next like 4 or 5 episodes from now. That's just going to be about a bunch of free resources that dungeon masters can use. Everything from like Google Docs would be an example of one, but also like Roll20, whatever, like just all different kinds of like, you know how sometimes you see like a TikTok or something and it's like, here's a free website that you should know. That kind of idea of just like, here's a bunch of resources that you can use for free that can be super helpful to help your organization or your flow state or whatever. But because I've been trying new things, because sometimes paper and pencil just ain't cutting it. I'll never look back on. I'm always going to keep writing things down. It really comes down to I like being outside sometimes. And so it's just easier to have a paper and pen than to like have my laptop. I've tried it. I've tried to bring my laptop outside and it's like, such a nightmare.
You can't see anything. Yeah.
No, I can't see anything. If it's too late at night, I can see everything. But now mosquitoes and bugs are being attracted to the light of my screen. What a freaking night. My God. Bruh.
Yeah.
But then also, if it's that dark, I probably can't see the page anyway. So it's whatever. But yeah, I really hope this helped.
Yeah.
And as per always, Big Tap. Thank you, Big Tap, so much. Great sponsor, H2O.
Okay, yeah, no, that's all we can get into this time. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at SoYouWannaBeADM, or you can ask us a question at SoYouWannaBeADM@gmail.com. If you like the episode, don't forget to give us 5 stars and a review wherever you found us, and check out the Patreon, the Twitch, and our merch with the link in the description. Join us next time for more Dungeon Master tips and tricks.
Bye!
See you.
And now, I have the honor of giving a shout out to the members of our Patreon gang. Numuffins, may Palor's light shine upon you. Marsavies, have you watered your flesh prison lately? And then there's Elijah, Molly, Tappy, and Linguini. Gang, we appreciate and love you. Tune in next time for more tips and tricks from So You Wanna Be a DM.